Environmentalists and Governor Jay Inslee have said the Snake River dams pose a major threat to wild salmon and need to be breached. Now, you've said that science does not support that theory, and you've been a staunch supporter of maintaining those dams. But now you're sounding the alarm about a much bigger threat to our salmon. What is that threat?
The threat is a new invasive species that's been infesting the Great Lakes region and through the Mississippi River system for a number of years. And Washingtonians don't seem to be the least bit concerned about this very real threat to our dams and to our infrastructure, but not only that, to the waters that our salmon depend upon. I'm very worried about it.
So what is the threat itself?
Well, the threat is that these small mussels come from Europe, have been introduced into our waters, and they have no known predators. So they produce at a very rapid pace. If you get one mussel in a water, that mussel can reproduce so rapidly that we can't get ahead of it and control it. It eats all of the food in the watershed, it reproduces and leaves shells, and it completely changes the ecosystem of that water. If we got one mussel in our lakes behind the dams, it would clog all of the turbines, all of the intake pipes. It would eat all of the food that our salmon depend upon. On those fish ladders that are made to allow fish to move upstream to spawn, it would absolutely act like a Vegematic on those fish because their shells are small and sharp, and they absolutely cover every surface. They attach to everything. And then when they do get to their spawning grounds, there's no food for the smolts because they eat everything that the fish in those waters eat. It renders the water pristine and clear, but the beaches are covered with drifts of shells. It's a horrible invasive species, and with our infrastructure having 11 run-of-the-river dams, and the dams are producing clean hydropower for 13 western states and Canada, it would render those dams irretrievably damaged. And the other part of it is that we have a full 671,000 irrigated acres in the Columbia Basin Project that would be totally impacted. All of the canals, all of the radial gates, all of the pumps would be devastated if we had quagga or zebra mussels infesting our watersheds in the Washington state. We're the one state in the western United States that has the most to lose, and we're the one state that does the least to protect our watersheds from these dangerous invasive mussels.
So you learned something very disturbing recently about a close call that involves these mussels. Tell us about that.
So I was back in D.C. and I visited with Senator Steve Daines of Montana, and he told the story of a police boat that was coming from Illinois across to Seattle. When it crossed the port of entry, it was presumed, because it had already previously crossed another state, that it was fully inspected. After all, it's a police vessel, and so it's presumed that it would have been cleaned properly and decontaminated if there are any contaminants. As you're well aware, the Great Lakes are fully infested. So they passed the vessel through their first inspection site. The following inspection sites were then assuming that it had been inspected at port of entry. When it made it to the tribal inspection sites at the border of Idaho, the tribal police photographed the impellers. They were entirely covered with live quagga and zebra mussels from the Great Lakes. So they were able to impound the vessel and completely clean the vessel. If they had not stopped that vessel at the state line, that potentially could have made it all the way to Seattle with live mussels on board. It would have been a devastating impact on the state of Washington. We're one mussel away from a complete watershed disaster for our state.
What's being done to prevent these mussels from invading Washington's waters?
The invasions are caught on the vessels. It's boater education. It's through on-site manual inspection of the boats. So without those inspections, we have no way to assure that the boating public will be able to clean and inspect their boats in a proper manner every time. And we don't have any room for mistakes or error. And the Fish and Wildlife department in our state is underfunded and not focused as highly on this problem, because to date we don't have the invasive species in our waters, and so there's not that momentum to try and prevent. But it's very important that we prevent these. We've put a proviso in the budget to elevate the issue, amplify the issue, and add a couple of extra inspection sites, in particular before the Snake River dams in Clarkston area, potentially up through the Umatilla, because California already has the invasive species. So it's very important that we protect the waters in our state. Idaho has a smaller program, Oregon has a program. We need to make sure at our state line that we stop every single mussel and make the boating public aware that they must clean their vessels before coming into Washington state.